I'm Mike Ryan. In our update on Chinese turquoise part 1, which we called then, we got a look of the period that is covered in chapter 5 of Turquoise in America part 2, which we called First Contact, where those who were involved in the development of that Chinese turquoise market tell their story. As you saw in the introduction, the video introduction of part 2, we see the new Yungai Temple National Park. And that's a new development. There at the area of the old Yungai Temple Mine, there is now a turquoise national park. It's a real tourist attraction. And the second part of that introductory video was the new turquoise market in Zhoushan. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So at the end of part 1, then, we saw Ron Alexander standing in front of the mine entrance. And here we're seeing the entrance that was the day, this photo is taken the day of the opening of the new national park in July of 2023. So this is a real recent development that has just happened. We're very grateful to Andy Wong for providing these photos. And as I mentioned in part 1, Andy is a turquoise dealer, and if you wish to contact him, you can do so on Facebook, and that's spelled W-A-N-G. So here we have the new tourists anxiously awaiting to get into the mine, and we also see here the inside the mine. The tourists are getting a tour inside the mine, so we see a photo of that. And we have here as they would drive into the mine, as they drive into this new tourist attraction, we have a photo here that shows the parking lot on that opening day. So the lower level is the parking lot, and then as you go up, there is the museum that we're going to take a look at, and then you go up a little higher and there's the facilities, the accommodations that we'll also take a look at. But one of the first things you're going to see when they come in there for to go to the museum is a bead sculpture. And if you remember in part 1, we had a photo of a young woman making beads. And this is a very important part of the turquoise tradition in China, is making beads. They have the beads, and then they have the specimens and the carved figurines. They use these carved figurines as part of their feng shui. It would be in their home and would really create a very harmonious environment using from the turquoise. And so here we have this bead sculpture, and then we also see an artist concept, the mock-up that was done before. So I think it's important to realize that as China is developing their market economy for turquoise, the turquoise market, they have to rely on their domestic market. And it's been a real challenge because there hasn't been, during communist period, there wasn't, nobody wore jewelry. So they've really had to develop this among the younger Chinese, and beads are an important part of that, as we're going to see. So after the sculpture, you'd go up and you'd see the museum. Here's a photo of the museum, and you'll notice here the entrance, it duplicates the mine entrance that we saw with Ron at the old period there. Next, we have a photo of some exhibits, and you'll see the specimens that I mentioned earlier. It's interesting here, as included in this museum, Andy said there's a photo, an old photo of Alan back in the period of First Contact. And they mentioned how many of those who remember that period, the old timers, they think very fondly about Alan and his involvement there at the mine, which is understandable because he speaks Chinese. He's the one who had the most contact with them. So Alan is, I guess, somewhat of a celebrity there in the Chinese turquoise world. The next photo we see is the museum store. And as we mentioned, we're going to notice a lot of beads. So this is really part of what they're really promoting now for their domestic market. When you finish viewing the museum and the store, you're going to go to your accommodations. And we see three different choices. You have a hotel, which I think would be kind of your basic accommodation. And Alan says this is located on the spot where they used to have the old accommodations that he would stay in when he was there in the late 80s. They've torn that down and built this sort of hotel. Then if you want a little better, you're going to pay a little bit more. You get these sort of terraced suites, let's say, where you can stay. And these even look to be air conditioned, so really quite comfortable. Then finally, at the very top are these deluxe, the kind of deluxe pods, if you will, the deluxe pods, which interestingly enough are located at the location of the old latrine. Alan says you'd come out of their residence where they were staying, and then they had the latrines, and it was right on this beautiful vista looking out over the mountains. And not the most pleasant at that time, but now they have used that location and that beautiful spot to have these deluxe pods for those who want the deluxe treatment on their visit to the Turquoise Park. So finally, we're going to take a look at a contrast between the old office buildings, which we see here in this sepia-tinted photo, and then the new office buildings. So we really see that they really have revitalized this whole area and trying to develop this market for turquoise. And, they're promoting it with the travel and trying to create some buzz, if you will, to create a market here. And it's not going to be there at the Yungai. By developing this, they have basically taken the old Yungai Temple turquoise off the market, not really available. Oh, maybe if somebody sneaks in there and tries to high grade some of the old tailings, because there's still a lot of tailings there. But it's going to be difficult because it's a tourist attraction. There's people there, there's security. So I think unlikely we'll see much Yungai Temple turquoise, and the market has shifted to Jushan district, still part of Hubei province. But Jushan is a 2-hour drive or so west of Shiran, which is the main center where a lot of the turquoise trade is centered now. And in order to promote this tourism, there's now, Andy says, a bullet train that comes from, that would be Wuhan, which is the largest city in Hubei province, to Shiran. So there's a bullet train into Shiran, and then much improved roads up to the park and also to the Jushan, where they have the new market that we saw in the introductory video. So we get an idea, I hope, from this part 2 then as to how much development there has been in the Chinese turquoise market, which really indicates that Chinese turquoise is going to continue to be an important part of our U.S. market, and even more so as the Chinese demand increases. It's really going to have an impact on the price of Chinese turquoise. So I hope you've enjoyed then part 1 and now part 2 of our Chinese turquoise update.